Today's build is filled with trepidation and doubt. Don't go away. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Fat Guy Productions. I am Paul, coming to you as always from beautiful Las Vegas, Nevada, and today really is a day of doubt. Today we're doing the Rattle Can Challenge brought to you by Lee, aka Time Rider, and he invited a lot of us to do this challenge for the 4th of July. And basically what we're doing is we're taking this 77 Dodge Hot Wheels van, and it's a rattle can challenge, meaning we have to paint it with rattle cans. And that has me freaked out, okay? I gotta be honest with you. The themes have to be service-oriented, okay? Police, fire, military, nurses, doctors, whatever. Service-oriented. That part, no problem for me. It's a no-brainer. But, man, I just finished the Jupiter 2. I'm doing the editing now, and I had to use rattle cans there, and it was a struggle for me, so I was really worried going into this build, and hopefully it'll come out all right in the end. Only way to find out is to get going. So let's get to it. So I have a clear plan in mind for this build. Living in Las Vegas, the home of Nellis Air Force Base and the famous Thunderbirds, and being an Air Force veteran myself, there was really only one option for me. Of course, I take this van apart by drilling out the posts, and this van was picture perfect for using shielded drilling. The post is surrounded by a perfect divot that holds the bit in place. With a little persuasion from my small flathead screwdriver, I can finally get the car apart, and I can see that the interior is very detailed, and it's actually really perfect for the build I have in mind, a Thunderbird van. The interior seems very aircrafty. Is that even a word, aircrafty? Well, it is now. Anyhow, this aircrafty interior will just need some detail paint. The wheels need to go, but I have a perfect set in mind. I'll go ahead and run the body through the warm liquid goo phase, and then I can work out some of the details for this build on paper. This appears to be a fairly robust paint, so I'm going to leave the body in the goo overnight. In the meantime, I can focus on other things. I loved the idea of a redline tire on this van, so I'm using a nice wheel and tire combo that have redlines. To get the old ones off, I just clip off one of the tabs that hold the stock axles in place, and then pop the old ones off. After a few adjustments, I can get the new axles and wheels to fit right in place. Once I'm happy with the fit, I'll just lock it all up with a dab of glue. After just over 24 hours, I can go fishing. Pull the body out of the goo. So I have the body out of the goo and it looks pretty clean. I'll give it a wash and then I'll hit it up with my brush, and then a miracle is about to happen. Yep, you can believe your own lying eyes. I have remembered to drill and tap the posts. You can indeed teach an old dog new tricks. This post was lusciously thick, easy to drill, and perfect for taking the screw. With the body stripped and clean, I can head over to the paint booth and break out some rattle cans. I'm going to begin this paint job with Tamiya Fine Primer in, of course, a rattle can. This stuff is amazing. After it dries, I'm going to turn to Tamiya Rattle Can White for the body. My hope was that this paint would lay down as nice as the primer does. It was surprisingly easy to get a relatively nice and smooth paint job with it. I did, of course, try to replicate my process for painting these cars, and I started putting down a very light coat, and then I built my way up to the final wet coats. Because I'm using white paint, I used gray primer to help me more easily see the coverage. If I had used white primer, it would have made getting proper coverage a lot tougher. I have to say that went surprisingly well. The glass isn't in perfect shape. There's a lot of scuffs and dings in it. It looks pretty ugly. So I'm going to have to do some work here. I first tried just polishing it with flits, but it actually looked worse after I was done. So I backtracked and took a 2000 grit sanding sponge to it. I smoothed it and leveled it all out. After that, I again lightly polished it with the flits and then gave it a thorough washing in the sink. Once the glass piece was completely dry from its bath, I could take it and dip it in my beloved gauzy. After the dipping, I'll wick off the excess and pop it into the onion saver and set it aside to dry. As mentioned earlier, I love the color of the interior, but it needs some detailing. So I'm going to leave the metallic blue of the part because it's perfect for this build. I only need to tend to the little things like seat belts and such. I painted the two rear bottles that I assume were supposed to be nitrous oxide, and I painted them green, essentially making them into oxygen bottles. I painted in the seat belts and the buckles, and it looks great, very much like the interior of a fighter jet. Under the smoky canopy, you're really not going to see any of this, but in the end, at least I'll know it's there. So here are the decals I made in my Alps printer. I designed them in Adobe Photoshop, printed them out, and now I'm just giving them a protective coating. The paint is dry, and the protective coating on the decals is dry, so now I can go ahead and start applying the decals. They go on just like any other water slide decal. Each decal is briefly soaked in water and then slid onto the model. And I use my beloved toothpick to scooch the thing around until it's positioned perfectly. Once it's there, I'll lock it all down with a little setting solution and let it dry. No, I didn't actually make a mistake and accidentally put the number 5 on the wrong way. It is upside down, but it is not the wrong way. The Thunderbird number 5 aircraft is the plane that does the inverted passes during their shows. And by having the number 5 upside down on the aircraft, it presents to the audience right side up as the aircraft flies by. That's why I chose the number 5, so it would have that unique upside down positioning. Once the decals are dry, I can head back to the paint booth for the final Rattle Can. This one honestly has me terrified, but I need a clear coat, so in keeping with the challenge theme, I have to push forward. I can finally start putting this build together. I'll start by dropping the glass in. Like a glove. Next up, the interior. Now comes the base. And I can now lock the whole thing back together with a button head screw. All that's left to do is paint a few exterior details, and I can call this one done. Being an Air Force veteran, I really did love this build, and I hope you love it too. All right, there you have it, my Rattle Can Challenge 77 Dodge Custom Thunderbird van. I think it came out infinitely better than I had any hopes of. I really love it, and I hope you do too. Especially as I was an Air Force veteran. This build was just the cat's pajamas for me. I'm going to go ahead and get out of here, but before I do, I just want to wish you all a fabulous 4th of July today, and to all our service members, our men and women in the military and police, fire, doctors, nurses, teachers, all of you folks, I salute you and thank you from the bottom of my heart for everything you do for us. This is Paul from Fat Guy Productions. Until next time, be good.